Live. This is Porthole to Justice, the window to the truth. It is February 17th, Saturday, and I am here with Lotus Justice. I didn't record an intro, but we're going to go ahead and go live anyways. Lotus, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? I'm glad you're feeling better.
Oh, somewhat.
Yes. A lot of that going around. I hope everyone's staying safe. So, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Crazy stuff happening again. We've got some movement in the feds with some legislation that looks on the surface to be maybe addressing some of the child trafficking issues. But as my mom said, she'll, working with the government, you have to wait to see the implementation. But it still leaves the states, from what I can read thus far, independently executing the Title IV programs. No federal oversight. From the way I read it, it was more control of steering away from the foster system and promoting what the statutes, what the spirit of the Title IV was to keep children with their families. I mean, they're controlling it through the purse. I wouldn't say they're not controlling it through the judiciary or through any type of limitations or reinforcement of federal law, if that makes any sense.
So it's essentially it's kind of like it's more privatized.
Well, no, it's actually I think the way I read it, and again, it all has to do with the way it's implemented, because the way the law works is the Congress passes the law, the statute, that grants funding to titled programs, and then the executive branch, right after the legislature passes it, the executive officer authorizes by his signature the implementation of that act into the executive branch, and they decide what part of the government they're going to put it under if it's not been designated within the title, and that department and agency of state proceeds to set up systems of executive administration to ensure the implementation of the act pursuant to the statutes. Okay, with Title IV, the agency, I guess what they did is they created Title IV and then gave it 100% to the judiciary to control and manage. And that's what in Title IV, someone had posted something somewhere that said that the Attorney General's office of the state said they didn't have jurisdiction in those matters. And in reality, they don't. They don't have the judiciaries. The Supreme Court of each state has been given the supreme authority to create a liaisonship with the State Department of Job and Family Services Division to implement through a self-management and self-reviewing system. So it's self-implemented. The states implement the program. The states audit themselves, except for random audits. And from what my mother, as a retired federal civil servant that did this, said, she didn't think that they were performing the audits appropriately unless they completely laxed the standards. That what she read would imply that a full audit should have been done already, and a more thorough audit of each state, because these are, it's just like a federal benefit. Title IV is a federal benefit program, just like Medicaid and Medicare. Okay, except what it's doing is it's allowing the states to receive grant funds by declaring children in need of either familial support or removal from the household. Okay. So the states are basically, every time they lay a claim against a child, they are applying for federal funding under that child's Social Security number. And the statutes, as they are written from the federal government, are being 100% regulated as far as to their compliance by the judiciary itself, which is not requiring compliance.
Yeah.
We've proven that they're not requiring compliance. That's what the Rucker-Feldman Doctrine is. They've been throwing the Rucker-Feldman Doctrine into everybody's face, which is basically saying the states are exempt from being sued or having to pay for the remedy. But the point is, okay, fine, give us the kid back. Return the kidnapped child. They're not. You're sitting here saying, hey, the state kidnapped our kid. They're like, oh, well, they're immune. And so, what? And so they get to keep the kidnapped kid? See, it's basically the courts are allowing their lower state judiciaries to kidnap children outside of statute. That's what we have proven in Clay's case, that they conspire when a claim is brought that clearly shows that they're not in compliance with the mandated federal law that they're receiving money for. Okay, so what we're talking about when children are being stolen by state probate, county probate courts.
Also, too, when the cases don't qualify, and this is what I see a lot in the porthole to justice, when they don't qualify, they insert other case numbers that aren't related to that case in order to qualify the case, and that's fraud.
Well, and it's banking fraud, it's bond fraud, it's a lot of types of fraud. It's criminal conspiracy to defraud the United States government, the American people, and the Susticate Trust of the children. They're stealing the children and seizing their Susticate. So, when we didn't understand how the government was structured, or at least when I didn't fully understand it, versus the way it's sold to be. Okay, the way it is structured versus the way we perceive it to be are two different things. And they just don't correct us in a lot of ways. And they actually, defraud us in how they say they are and how they say they work. And more than anything, I don't think they know how they work, because it's been such a quick but silent coup of our instruments to state. We're all like going, well, what was that? How'd that happen? How'd they get that? It's like we got slapped really hard, really quick with these corruptions. Fed Act there's some pivot points where trust law is created, and then it just ramps to the next layer, and we've gotten to the point where they're trafficking our children in the judiciary by allowing the state, the same people who said they had no jurisdiction in it. Okay, so if the Attorney General of the state says he doesn't have jurisdiction in the CPS probate courts, yet he's bringing causes of action in them. People are bringing causes of action in the name of the state of which he is the general of all the attorneys. Mm-hmm. So it's a paradox, because this is what's happened in Ohio. The counties bring the claims against these parents in the name of the mothers and fathers, but they would call them parents, in the name of the state of Ohio, right? And yet the Attorney General of that state, the head attorney of that state, who's allowing these fraudulent claims to be brought forth in the name of the people he represents, the state of Ohio, says that we're hands off and we allow local rule. Well, he's basically saying we let the counties be as corrupt as we want them to be. He's trying to say the Attorney General for the state of Ohio feels that he's not a real party of interest in a cause of action where a county officer, who is again the prosecuting attorney of the county and in the same branch of government as the Attorney General, one who prosecutes causes against, of crimes against the state. One's on the county level, one's on the state level. We let them just run their whole shebang, and we don't keep track of them. And even in times of criminality, they're like, no, it's just all home rule. So basically, it's rogue counties here and there, all over the country, being allowed to run roguish. And so the executive branches bringing the prosecutions are conspiring with the CPS officers. The CPS is usually controlled by the county prosecutor, and they're saying, but the Attorney General is saying he has no jurisdiction in the matter. He has jurisdiction in the matter because it's called treason. Okay, it's called child trafficking. But they don't like to. They think that anyone in the state is immune, and that's what they've done in our case. They've said the state's immune. These aren't parties of interest. These parties of interest are immune from prosecution. Okay, where's the kid? They're like, we're not even going to discuss whether he's kidnapped. We're just going to automatically give them immunity. And it's unappealable is what they're basically trying to imply. Well, that's really what they're saying.
What ends up happening is they send it back to the juvenile courts. And
I'm going to tell you, if they think we're going to go back down to a juvenile court in this cause of action, they're sadly misguided. Well, and that's another thing that they've been doing too.
Well, yeah, what they end up doing is they ultimately say that the only court that has the authority to return the child is the juvenile courts. So they send it back to the juvenile court.
Well, if the juvenile court has committed treason already, how are they going to do that?
Yeah. Well, no, there's such criminality, Lotus. It's so bad. I just posted a link in the social media news network. The FBI parents, the two parents caught the FBI grooming their son to be a terrorist, and they've brought forth a case. He's
of course.
And, you know, in the alternative media, we've known about these staged events and how they groom these. Oftentimes, they're you know, young men that have been brought up in the child protective system.
Yeah, they're already on the fringes, right? Like this young, you know, Patsy that they just created out in Florida. I mean, that kid has been victimized his whole life. And then they want to, you know, they basically groomed to be a patsy in one of their little actors. You know, their little false state actions. Where they really kill people sometimes. I mean, they actually kill people sometimes. Like in 9/11, they killed people, but it was a totally actor contrived conspiracy.
Well, you know, and it's like these kids have the same backgrounds, you know. And this child came from the Child Protective Services. His parents were murdered. They actually prefer children that have lost their parents to death. Because they are more loyal to the program, or they target children.
Well, they're probably also more susceptible to doing anything to achieve attention and accolades, acceptance, and positive affirmation. Yeah. I mean, this is all mind control, social engineering, people. I mean, that's what's so weird about this.
But they've been caught red-handed. People. I mean, we've known in the alternative media for some time that they groom these children, and these are
weren't the bombing ones? Weren't the kid or something with the what's the one where they had the two brothers and they found one of them in the boat, and then they took one of the brothers and basically beat him to death on the street naked, and then he didn't even make it to the police station. I'm trying to think what it was, and they come to find out that the younger brother had been groomed by the FBI or some federal agency for years, and they basically said they basically lead these people into saying, you're gonna go in as your undercover, and you're gonna try to solicit people to do this. And then what they basically do is orchestrate these guys to go in and do it, right? And then actually go through the motions sometimes. Like say, no, it's part of your duty to your country. I mean, they even snowball them. I mean, it's basically going into, it's milking the vacancies of state, I guess is all I could say it, because it's a contrived state. The state actually knows these actions are happening, or at least some aspect. Like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
Well, they've actually been caught in this case.
Oh yeah, I mean, but what I guess what we're finding out is that there is a hidden deep state of corruption, where there are people who are conspiring on a regular and daily, hourly, minute basis, and have been for years, to conspire to affect war against the United States, or to create divisiveness, to create
it's within these government agencies that we've known.
Like the
we've known in our movement
have time, right?
Yeah, and
I mean, you're find out that it seems in my mind that if we suddenly got rid of government, we wouldn't have nearly as much guns, we wouldn't have nearly as much poverty, we wouldn't have nearly as much crime, we wouldn't have nearly as much drugs on the street, we wouldn't have nearly as much child welfare system, we wouldn't have nearly as much child abuse, rape, mayhem, and probably even murder. I mean,
and human trafficking.
And human trafficking. Well, that in itself, if the human trafficking would almost go to nil. Without the state, because the state is facilitating human trafficking in and of itself. It's become the industry standard, you know. And again, it goes back to the failed state is failed because it's been infiltrated to fail. That's the point. There are people within the system corrupting it with forethought and willful intent. And in doing that, they create chaos and divisiveness, and they game a necessity. This is fascism. This is whenever you become a police state, you are being gamed by your government into believing that you need them for safety and security, when the fact of the matter is they are the ones puppeting and manufacturing the preponderances of the issues that you face every day in your life that bring you strife and fear and all that stuff. We have entered a period where the state is using its power because the people who've been running it are corrupt individuals. You know, the instruments of state are not corrupted, but by the men and women who occupy them. Okay, so at least in a republic, in a lawful republic, that, you know, it's the instrument of the state is fixed. That's what we hold. That's what we created. And currently corporations occupy those seats. And we've allowed that to happen. The law has allowed that to happen.
We've published so much proof to the porthole to justice that they're trafficking the children.
Oh, yeah, they're totally trafficking.
On their
they're
heads.
Trafficking humans.
They're gaslighting the parents. Yeah. They're targeting.
Oh, my gosh.
They're targeting. They're setting people up, illegally detaining. I mean, there's so much evidence. So much.
They're gaslighting everybody. Not just gaslighting parents. I mean, they're gaslighting grandmothers. I mean, it's bizarre, this level of lawlessness. And it's really rooted in these secret associations. And you're not supposed to have secret associations as an agent of our republic state. You're not the United States corporation.
So
it would be like if Xerox.
Let me just read you a little bit of this article. It's posted in the Alternative News and Independent Views website, activistpost.com, and it says parents catch FBI in a plot to force mentally ill son to be a right-wing terrorist. Okay? I'm not kidding you.
I don't doubt it at all. We talk about grooming candidates.
Jerry Drake Varnell, 23-year-old, diagnosed with schizophrenic, accused of attempting to bomb a bank. The FBI fomented the terror from the right-wing dialogue. And this was in June. He described himself as a believer in the 3%er. You know, they have that whole ideology they want to label themselves with, and to control the narrative.
Right.
And so right now the hot button term is the right wing group. According to federal documents, Vernell drove what he believed was a stolen van containing 1,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate bomb on Saturday morning to blow up Oklahoma City Bank. And
for whose benefit?
Well, apparently the FBI began grooming their would-be right-wing militia terrorists.
So did they present them? So basically, the FBI went out there saying they were the right-wing militia terrorists, luring people into their ideology, and then lured them in to commit crimes.
Exactly, and the parents got involved.
And this is the deal. The FBI is so okay. The level of the creation of a criminal construct being cultivated by the state is what makes our government right now predominantly fascist and gaming the people. You have a union of secret society agents who are occupying various levels of government in various branches of government and are collectively conspiring, therefore dissolving the division of government. You know how our government has 4 branches. Most people think it only has 3. And each branch has its own power. And by the division of those powers, we ensure safety and security of the instruments, okay? There's a division of power. Well, if you have agents in all 4 branches of government, the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the branch of the American people, the Republic, and you have people with, even in the 3 governmental instrument, the first 3, instead of the 4th, the people, if you just occupy all 3 of those or even take control of 2. So we're coming to understanding that a small group of people had been controlling and orchestrating and talking and between the 3 branches of government, therefore conspiring within the 3 branches of government, because we have the FISA judges who should have never issued the warrant. You have the Department of Justice and the FBI, which, are supposed to be enforcing the instruments of commerce, and you have the entire executive branch being cooed, and the judicial branch being culpable in the issuance of warrants that should have been never issued by any standard of due process, okay? Hearsay and stuff like that. They never should have been issued. So you have two branches of government that conspired with, I assure you, there are people in, okay, and then you have Nancy Pelosi, you have members of the Democratic Party at large, and the legislative branch that were conspiring as well, probably will come to find out. And then you have private people operating in a private capacity who have used their previous positions within the government to bring influence and monetary gain to themselves in the Clintons and some of the Clinton, or the members of the Clinton Foundation. So you have all these people in all branches of government with these liaisons that are conspiring to literally defraud the American people of not only an election, but you're going to find out property, money, influence. They probably unlawfully sold portions of our land,
taking their houses, their deeds.
They basically occupied our corporate instrument and raided our assets unlawfully and criminally. And they're not the first ones. And that's the thing. But the people don't understand that your government are your trustees to your wealth. I know we think that we're poor, we work every day in this. We're not. We're the wealthiest spirits in incarnation, because we gave away our jubilee and everyone runs on it. We're just happy to be on the land and live in peace. Just leave us alone. That's all we cared about. That's all we wanted.
Alone. So
you can have our estates, just leave us alone.
Okay, so what these
and they
parents,
didn't do that,
these
and they're
parents,
not doing that. So we're
so
these people are against that type of mentality.
Yeah, we've known in the Porthole to Justice for probably about 4 or 5 years that the FBI has been compromised, because we actually submitted a bunch of letters, a lot of the parents, with evidence of the fraud, and the FBI sent all of us back the same letters saying that our cases didn't meet the criteria for investigation by their department. However, okay, these parents are saying that the public should be looking at the fact that the FBI gave their son the means to make this happen.
Yeah, he had no job. The criminals.
He had no job, no money, no vehicle, and no driver's license, due to the fact that he is schizophrenic and had mental illness. His parents do everything that his parents do everything possible to keep him safe and functional.
By limiting his independence, really, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So basically, the parents are saying the FBI came and picked him up from our home. They gave him a vehicle, gave him the fake bomb, and every means to make this happen. None of it which he had access to on his own.
So they even gave him the material support.
Yes.
Well, how is that not just giving a monkey a string and telling him to pull it?
Well,
I mean, that's just creating
media,
a patsy. I mean, that's actually cultivating
in the
patsies.
Alternative media and in the movement, the Child Protective Services movement. We've known for a long time that they've been grooming these children.
I wouldn't even be surprised if the right hand of the FBI, who says, "Oh, sorry, we dropped the ball and didn't investigate this crime," didn't know that the left hand of the FBI that cultivated the dude after for the last 7 years probably. I mean, they know this is how creepy these people are. They target people for their ability to victimize them. You have to remember, the whole prison industrial complex is full of the impoverished and the people who have been failed by the state in a variety of ways. They're predominantly victims of sexual or physical abuse as children, have been victimized by the state, most often on top of that, not protected, not only not protected, but usually trafficked more, targeted more, especially if they're second generation through CPS. I mean, there are people having their children stolen who were allowed to be victimized by CPS. And they allowed them to be victimized and run through the process, but didn't save them from the families, because then they knew that they would never gain any material support. And as adults, when they became pregnant, they could just rip the babies out of their arms right after the pregnancy was over with in the hospital. Because as soon as your name is in the system as a foster child, then you're going to have your kids taken. They're actually cultivating entire generations of just baby trafficking. It's really disgusting. Yeah. Breeders. And this is just disgusting. And then you have the judiciary saying, "Oh, they're immune. They're immune, but where are the babies?" I'm starting to get to the point where it's really starting to make me kind of an angry repugnant. It's like, I get your little we didn't know this was going on. This is abhorrent. Oh my God, there's crimes, but we don't know who to prosecute. Give us time. Okay, yeah, but then give us the babies back. Here's a list of babies. We want to know where they are.
Yeah, and I mean,
where
clearly
are these children?
The system is broken. It's not working. It doesn't function. It's absolutely corrupt, and they're not even complying with federal audits or even federal standards.
Well, I mean, that's really the issue. I'm going to tell you, wait till they audit the judiciary. Those are banks. Those are all banks. Those are private banks. That is what every forum is under. They're private banks. Those are portholes to someone coming and in a manner of how to just convey it in metaphor. It's like that's where other people get to come and write a check off of your jubilee. A check. They write a check and walk to the window and say, "Here, cash this." That's what they're doing. They're not.
I mean,
that's yeah.
It's never been. I mean, it's so like blatantly out there now. I mean, it's just.
But their statutes, the way it's structured, has allowed us to see it that way. That's the beauty of the snake eating its tail. It's not the instrument itself shows you they are corrupt. The instruments they created, the statutes in the system and the title and everything that's created. As again, there's nothing in Title IV that says due process is suspended, nor does it have the authority to suspend due process. So why would the judiciary presume that it could run probate courts and seize children in maritime auxiliary liens as things to probate?
With no regulation, no oversight.
With no due process of law. Let's not forget, and seize just the children themselves. Okay, the definition of arrest and the definition of prison in any law dictionary, quote unquote, would tell you, by definition, the children themselves have been arrested and put in prison. I don't care what they call it. They arrested the child's travel in his standard nature with his familial associations. They arrested him and seized him, removed him from his family, and put him in a place against his will that he was not naturally intended to be. That is arrest and imprisonment. Okay? So I'm asking the state on behalf of Clay, how did you arrest me and imprison me without due process of law? How did you determine that you get to keep me from all my 2,500 family members, of which one was immediately qualified for familial placement and applied for permanent custody and adoption, and was told after the hearing, we heard you, but we're returning your motion because you didn't pay $45 fee. Do you understand what that is? I mean, the repugnance of that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's poll taxing. Oh, after the fact. Well, look, we created a poll tax retroactively because we knew we screwed ourselves. We didn't think you would have any way to file a motion for adoption. It's just like we're trying to get the one thing that the statutes require. Every case concerning child custody under Title 4E, at least, I'm assuming it applies to Title 4D as well, if it's getting funding through the same title, because this is under the title requirements of Title 4, and that is that they have to be able to produce a transcript. Okay, so we have asked or tried to attempt by either subpoena, personal request, mandamus, whatever, to get these transcripts. That's part of our appeal. We've been denied the transcripts, and as a requirement, you have to have a transcript of the proceedings in order to file an appeal. Do you understand that? Do you understand the paradox of that? So the probate court is required by statute to provide a transcript. This probate court refused to give us a transcript. We can't appeal the case without a transcript. And the appellate court right above the probate said, since we don't have a transcript and we're not owed the transcript, we can't file an appeal. Do you understand the paradoxes of law? We're to the Seventh Circuit. One court, quote unquote, below the Supreme. There's only one court above it, other than International Court, Supreme Court. And we still don't have the transcript. And there's no court that wants to accept the authority on who's supposed to enforce the requirements of transcripts. Because the way it stands is, if the probate court denies it, you're done. Well, sorry, you're just done. State's immune. I mean, it's just the ludicrousness of the absurd suspension of due process. No one gave them the authority and the title to do that.
I mean, they can't.
No one gave them the authority.
We can't have them unregulated and give them unlimited power and access to federal funding.
Well, it's unconstitutional because there's no checks and balances.
Yeah.
There's none.
No. And as far as I can see, any audit that's ever been completed, they've never implemented the recommendations. As far as I can see, going back, going back, at least 10 years, they've never implemented any of the recommendations.
Well, it's not even a matter of, here's the problem with even that. If the recommendations are in the basic requirements and mandates of the law, after one time, that's not a recommendation anymore. That's reminding them of the law. Again, no one's prosecuting because the judiciary is running around letting its other judicial bar member unions completely operate in repugnance to the law and issue checks against the Treasury on claims against these kids' Social Security numbers. The judiciary is allowing banking fraud, negotiable instrument fraud against the United States and the American people and the United States of America. It's fraud. It's no different than the housing fraud. And guess what? All the mortgage fraud was perpetuated by the same people. There were judges in that whole mortgage fraud stuff. There were sheriffs helping affect mortgage fraud. Still are. There's bankers. There's people in the government and housing and HUD and human development. It's the same people. It's the same corrupt bar unions using their union member association across the bars and the branches of government to affect racketeering.
Yep.
And to racket and game the people. The FBI were creating gaming. The FBI were gaming the people by the cultivation of the young man. They were gaming a federal criminality. They were gaming a mass murderer. For what? So that they, okay, you know what that makes the FBI? That makes them the SS.
Yep.
That makes the FBI
and the
SS.
And the secret police.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if they're cultivating actors that turn around and commit acts of war, okay, because this young man, or if there were anybody who commit open acts of mass murder, violent, just Americans, the people I'm looking at, right? That type of mass murder, that is an act of war, okay, of an individual against the society. One, it's like self-immolation. I blew myself up in the train station. That's an act of war of self. But if that person, that man or woman, was cultivated by agents of state to do that, then you're talking that's state-created terrorism.
Yep. Well, we've known this for years. We've known this in the alternative media. And the movement. We've known about them grooming these kids in Child Protective Services as terrorists.
Well, I mean, I've had people that have been in the state of Ohio their whole lives who said that for 20, 30 years they've been talking to the FBI or known that the FBI or certain people within the systems of the federal law enforcement agencies were culpable in the trafficking of children here in Ohio and apparently across the Canadian border. I've had people say that has been happening. They would go talk, and they started, they went to the FBI. As soon as someone started investigating, they'd get shipped to Alaska. Like, they have names. That there was a manipulation to oppress investigations into legitimate concerns that the people had that were bringing forth evidence of internal corruption within the system, judges taking bribes, basically it's like, imagine if Vegas and the government decided to shake hands, it's like criminality all the time, where the state, if you can't beat them, join them, So where the state is now the big gaming, the big boss, Al Pacino guy. I mean, and that's what they're doing. They're creating and cultivating domestic terrorists. I am not, I don't know if I think that we should have an FBI anymore, because I'm trying to think. But I mean, I do know that the FBI has done some, really good banking investigation, but they seem so internally corrupted. They really need a thorough scrubbing. And anyone who's even halfway dirty, I mean, I don't even know. It's just, it seems such a moral vacancy.
Yeah.
For that to happen, or were they all operating in secrecy? Are all these things in secret? Like, are these liaisons only not known by all the people at hand? I mean, it seems very Machiavellian, and I'm really glad that I never went to work for the government. And both my parents did, and my dad quit state government because he discovered that there were some handshakes, being made across the bar, and he wasn't willing to participate in it ananymore. He was a probation officer. So
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, but I do wanted to talk about the Office of Conscientious and Religious.
I was just going to say on another note, there's a new office that they've developed, which is sounds pretty good, out of the HHS.
Right. They're putting it's considered a law enforcement division. So I think they're getting kind of their own investigative FBI kind of, type of style people who may investigate claims against violations of conscientious and religious freedoms.
And what are they calling? What are they calling this department?
It's called the Division of OCR. I think it's the Office of Conscientious and Religious something. But it's called the OCR Division of HHS, and it was just created, I think, on the 18th. I think they created it during these shutdowns. In some of these shutdown packages. I think the first one they did something like one of the child food programs that was always like a contention. It was barely funded since its creation, and got fully funded for 10 years or something like that. Like, they're doing all these great things, but the thing that I really wanted to hurry them to do is to stop these conveyances of children. Is to stop the trafficking immediately. I think we need to, this isn't, it's not. We need to immediately stop the conveyance. Any case against children needs to immediately be stopped and put on pause, and no children, because they're just conveying them left and right. So we have good things happening, but we still have the critical issue.
And then we have this. Okay, I know that we've talked about and we've discussed the military tribunals.
Yes.
As being, trying these cases and crimes against the state. What are you aware of that is being done at this point? As far as
I have not been made privy to, I cannot say, because I have not seen with my own two eyes anything that has happened of a nature where anything. Some pivot point has happened in my mind, in the greater scheme of how the government's being run and taking the judiciary coup out and stuff. I hope that it's forthcoming because, I'm very concerned about our nation because, I understand the gravity and the breadth of, at least I think I have a pretty good handle on what the possibilities of positive and negative could happen here. And my biggest concern is that these people are stealing like thieves now, and just tyrannizing a lot of people because they're kind of exposed, and it's kind of like the thieves running out of the grocery store and they just want to grab that last little piece, and they're all running off the boat. I don't want this all to be secretive. I want to know. I want to know every detail. I want to know where every kid that's missing has gone. I want to know. I want every Social Security number and reissuance of birth certificates and that tracked to the terminal death of that child or whatever. I want a state agent, a notarial agent, to go out and make sure that every child that's been trafficked through Title IV, E, and D, that their origins are found and determined, and they're determined to find out if there's a natural cause through trafficking, whatever. But I want every conveyance of a child checked for criminality.
So
because you're talking about a potential of having a Holocaust.
Yeah.
Where they have been taking and stealing American children through this coup within the government, literally just stealing children from poor people who have no power under the auspices of the power of the state. And I mean, we already know about Boys Town. We already know it goes back to Boys Town.
Yeah.
Because that's what they were doing at Boys Town. So
yep,
we know
that the MK Ultra program never ended during the Clinton administration.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of people that believe that all they've done is just statutize Boys Town.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, when they're basically, they gave the
federal government through the judiciary.
No, they're not. Here's the legislation is written so that the only people who have any control over the orchestration and implementation of it is in the judiciary, not in the executive branch of the state. Why wouldn't you put it in the executive branch of the state? Mm-hmm. You know why? Because they're probating them in bankruptcies. This is a probate. They put rewards on the probating of children with no checks and balances of due process of law, and allowing the state bar unions to control all claims and be self-reporting and self-auditing. Oh yeah, we're doing it right as we steal everybody's babies down here, because no claims ever get through except ours.
Yeah.
Except for people whose parents refuse to give up.
So how do we check? Is there a way to check the dockets for military tribunals to see like?
No, I mean that's the thing, and not only that, but we've got the civil forum dockets, adulterated by the. I have a clerk in the 6th who thinks she's a judge and could dismiss a cause of action like she's been appointed somehow to adjudicate. Somehow within powers that are not given to her. And then I've got the clerk of the 7th who's left the writ off and thinks they are in power of who is the party of interest in the cause of action. I mean, these statements made by these clerks put even the ledgers of, I mean, how many claims have the clerks dismissed unlawfully?
Yeah.
By attorneys who feel compelled to just drop it, feel like they can't go any further because they don't know the law, or they said they can't,
or block the cause of action.
Or block the cause of action, and what the clerk says you do because you agreed to join our union. And so they're like, but that's not, they're like, well, you're not going to go any further. Good luck. And they stifle claims.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about where they're supposed to be preventing, the judiciary is.
They're denying remedy to parents.
But they're not only doing that, they're actually entertaining and authorizing fraudulent claims against negotiable instruments as holdings of the United States Corporation, the Susticate Trust of the Children. They hold the bank to our Social Security accounts. We created the Social Security system. The United States, as a corporate body, created the Social Security Act, the securitization of human flesh, really, the birth of each child, being a secured instrument, a creation of capita.
This is the biggest political scandal of our lifetime.
It's not.
It really is.
It's the whole purpose of the American paradigm. This is what we were intended to create and then kick out the evil. Our purpose, our philosophy of law, believed that every man, woman, and child owned their human capita, their wealth of their carnation. My intellectual property, me, I own me, okay, under our law. There are laws where you don't own me, you don't own yourself. I mean, there really are states that you don't own yourself, and you don't own your property. There are different forms of government. Our form of government says that every man, woman, child, at their incarnation is given certain rights by their creator, and one of them is to own yourself, your selfdom, okay? We've created the system where at incarnation you are given a negotiable instrument that proves you have a right to the usufruct, the entirety of the realm, the whole of existence, the jubilee. You are owed by being incarnated in this reality a fair and equitable portion of its usage in peace, harmony, and being able to pursue happiness. All those good things. We're all supposed to live in harmony.
We've been denied that for generations.
Well, yeah. Probably for our entire existence up until this point in time when we're fighting for it, something different. But we're supposed to drive the machine of a republic state, of a jural society, so that each child is given it's granted by acts of law and commerce, public commerce and private commerce, the right to control their jubilee in the usufructuary. And the state is supposed to be taking that as a trustee and not defrauding it and cultivating a future, okay?
Yeah.
For the children. Instead of doing that, they're stealing the children and just, they're laying odds against it. They're actually borrowing against the children's trust.
Yeah, and this is so bad. I profiled today, Lotus, in the Porthole to Justice, the coordinator to end corporal punishment of children, Peter Newell. He's a UNICEF consultant, okay? He was charged with raping a boy, I think for 3 years. These are the people that are in charge of regulating the welfare of the children. Are you there?
Well, and yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Children's rights. He's a children's rights campaigner. He's 77 years old from London, and he helps prepare the UNICEF implementation handbook for the Convention on Children's Rights.
And this guy's a pedophile?
Yes.
Well,
he's been jailed for raping a 13-year-old boy.
What better way to control access of children than to infiltrate systems of the state that create some type of claim?
And then we have Child Protective Services that's unregulated, that appears to be the purveyors of a lot of this corruption.
Well, here's again, we're back to what these people are doing, because it's really more than just state corruption. It's actually cultism, okay? It's cultism.
It's a cult, yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
a cult. This isn't just like these crazy guys who got together and said, hey, let's overthrow. No, these are people that are in a cult. There is more than just the desire to be wealthy. There is a desire to control humanity and to subjugate groups of people. It's a type of occultish elitism. I mean, it's not just and they really are even by the origins of the word. I can't remember the word. The etymology of the words, that you're talking about probate. The word probate has to do with approbate, which has to do with someone who is a novitiate, which means a priest in training. So when you are being probated, you're being put by the etymology of the words under the supervision of the church as a novice priest. Okay, so they're put in their minds, they're putting these children into novice priesthood, into their cult of state, instead of law. Because you're finding that they're also targeting people who don't believe that these courts have the authority over their children. In Ray's case, they tried to portray her as a Nazi because she was signing her name with all rights reserved, because she'd already been defrauded under one plea agreement. So she learned, she's sitting here realizing that she got to the point where she wouldn't sign anything anymore, because every time she signed something, if she didn't sign it the way they liked it, they'd put her in the hole. I mean, it's that bad. It's to the point where when you know what you're doing, they're even there threatening prison or jail in prison if you don't sign something that they insist that you must sign when you don't have to. It's them imposing by subjugation and imprisonment and tyranny and oppression into getting people to sign things. It's literally that simple. Sign your bond. You go sign your own bonds. Okay, so I'm a criminal, but I have the power of a signature to borrow $100,000. That's what threw me off. I'm like, wow, this took less signatures than when I bought my house. Mm-hmm. And all it is I issued a bond against myself with my own signature. How does that happen? They're coercing you into more and deeper contracts and the conveyances and the relinquishing of rights. It's a contrived paper slavery, and they're trying to tell you
it's so out of control. I don't even know what to do anymore. I mean, we don't have any law. We don't have.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said I'm hoping that, as I've been said, I hope that Trump and the military, I'm pretty sure that the military are involved in this, and they need to be. But this can't be on the down low. I'm sorry.
No.
No. This is a Holocaust. There are thousands of children missing, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions. I mean, we're talking about, well, if they have CPS, offices on bases in states and these countries where they're affecting civil war,
creating false flags so that they can intentionally so they can remove the children. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying. This just sounds so Orwellian to me.
It's a Holocaust. It's Nazi Germany.
Yes, but it's like, is it even a Holocaust of our own design? Have we literally been infiltrated by like-looking aliens who eat our children, and they literally have just surreptitiously taken over our I mean, it seems like science fiction Orwellian, doesn't it? Like Invasion of the Body Snatchers stuff.
Mm-hmm.
X-File. I mean, it's like, really? And that's when you just go, ugh. That's just when you're like, you feel, that would be the better thing. That'd be more believable in a way.
I mean, the fact that our own human beings are doing this against other human beings.
Yes.
Vulnerable human beings, and intentionally creating poverty so that they can target a class of people for trafficking and organ harvesting. I mean, go ahead.
You know what that would prove? It would prove that the state, the constructs of state itself, at least the imposition of state, not necessarily the dual society organic creation of state, but the imposition of the state upon the people, the masses, is actually driven by psychopaths.
Yeah.
That aspect of state is a psychopathic drive, and that the people who tend to take those positions of authoritarian state are genuinely psychopathic, but they can't be sociopathic because they work together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, so now they're hive-minded sociopaths. Great, these people, there are people who knowingly are doing these things, and they're like talking in secret code and sending private messages, but in a way, it's almost they've gotten to the point that they're egregious and open about it.
Yeah.
And so, and the only thing that makes me feel better at the end of the day, and I still am very trouble with this. I have a very hard time with this, particularly when I have to keep writing and deal with these people and just watch them overtly, basically just violate the law right there on the record.
I've had cases where I've advocated on, and I've gone into the records department, and I've asked with my client beside me, I have asked for them to get the case file, and I've literally sat there and watched them do hand signals at each other, giving each other like thumbs up and crossed fingers and all of this stuff, and then they go back into the office and they say, that court file isn't available. It's in the judge's chambers. And then come back 2 weeks later to have them say the same thing. Using these...
Well, go up to the judge's chambers and get it is what I always did.
Yeah, but they're openly using these hand signals.
Oh, I know. I've had a...
Right in front of you. Like you're not even there. Like you're not seeing what they're doing.
I know. It's like they're insane. They literally are narcissistic sociopaths. They're like the worst kind of criminal mind. That they lack empathy, and they mutually like to hang around other people who lack empathy. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's us unempathetic people against the weak. Let's eat the weak. I mean, it's just the targeting is predatory. I'll say, and so the state is actually predatory in its nature as well, in that it's preying upon the innocent children, the poor and the impoverished who have not been served by the state under their mandate. They cultivate those things. It's that time. I never really could ever in my mind prove that poverty and drug addictions and all the things that create asocial character, the asocial categories of society, the poor, what we look down on all. In a free will society, we think if you are an asocial and not conforming, that you are somehow failing as a person. When in reality, what we're coming to find is that our society is not as equitable as we think. That there are contrived actions happening to create and cultivate stratifications of class and poverty and wealth and elitism, that the society itself is being played with by the unseen hand of a group of cooing people who are playing with the banking and playing with interest rates and playing with social paradigms and playing with the education and playing by cultivating domestic terrorists and all these things. They're just gaming us. They're just creating all of these storylines that cultivate their own cultivate their own existence.
Not only that,
I want to know if we
they're
stop
openly
funding.
spying on us too now.
Yeah, it's like they're eating off the wealth of the American people. They're eating the substance of the American people, like it says in the Declaration of Independence. It's the same foreign agents sent by the king to eat the substance of the people. It's the same people, the exact same instruments. It's the bar unions, the bankers, the attorneys, the titles of nobility, the doctors who are killing our kids with licensed drug pushers of methamphetamines. It's okay if your kid's hooked on methamphetamines as long as it's pharmaceutical grade and a guy in a white coat with a PhD from the state says it's okay. But you go to the guy down the street corner who makes it for a fifth of the value, and they hook these kids. I mean, do you know how many people that I have heard that crush their Adderall and snort it?
Yeah, well, they get these kids, especially these kids in state custody. They get them hooked on Adderall.
Oh my God. They self-diagnose themselves with OCD and go looking for the Adderall. If you're a rich white kid, you go buy Adderall. If you're an impoverished person, you go make it, and however they make it. You see what I'm saying? It's just state-sanctioned drug pushers. You have state-sanctioned RICO. Everything that you're finding out is that it's not the system, it's not the law or the seats of state. It's that the criminal enterprise, that the state is a criminal syndicate, or at least it has been. Right.
So okay, since we have no remedy in the courts and we have no law anymore.
Well, there's a couple options. You could fight with guns and lose. And that would be stupid and bloody because you're not saving kids. Or you could use the trust laws and the banking laws to bust their bar unions and either prove under the law that these people have no intention of ever following the banking laws and the laws that they're supposed to operate in, and to cleanse the criminality out of the instruments of state by whatever means possible, military, common law tribunals, and hangings. I don't care. But the military will do it proper for treason and high treason and hang people, and they will not hide it all. The American people shall know. Because if we aren't told, then it will just be allowed again, because we won't even know to look for it. There's not going to be some secret settlement to plots of high treason. That's not going to happen, nor should we tolerate such ruminations. That in itself would be an act of treason. To prevent the American people from understanding the breadth and the degree of treason in our state and our government, and to hide it from us in toto, would be an act of treason in my mind by itself, because they are not our parents. The state doesn't get to define when it tells us bad news. Well, we're not going to tell Johnny we're getting divorced tonight until next month. No. They don't get to do that. States don't get to make decisions like that for us in a jural republic. Because in a jural republic, we give our consent to be governed. We allow the government to use our estates and our capita for the betterment of all humanity, all mankind. They're supposed to use it within the law, borrow against it within the law, and provide for our children and the people and the territories and stuff that we take under our care and holding, not into our oppression and occupation. They're supposed to be using it in altruistic means under our law.
And this is what's
That's
occurring. So this is what we have.
And instead, they're using it. Yes, this is what we have, because there is an internal corruption, and there is a mechanism for cleansing this out. We have proof of it because the system itself has routed them out. The system that they themselves created is bringing forth the truth of what they do. That's just the nature of the serpent eating its tail. We've completed the process. We need to oppose the law and remove the inherent people, the people who are inherently corrupt, who have somehow come to occupy those systems of state and are now conspiring to undermine it with an intent to make war against the American people and steal and defraud from us. This is all about taking control of the world, of the World Banks, of the Treasury of the United States, of taking control and cooing the United States corporation as the United States corporation, the instrument of the Congress, hold the purse of the trust. They hold the purse. Mm-hmm. They hold the trust. The way I'm understanding it these days, it seems almost like the Congress holds the purse of the World Bank through the Fed note. And if that, so you have people defrauding the world banks. It's just criminal conspiracy. It's old gangsta stuff.
Yeah,
and
it's
judges,
the mob,
really it's the mob, exactly. And it's always been that way. The mob has always, influenced the judges. Now they just run for mayor.
Yeah,
the mob just is the mayor. Now they're just openly running the mobsters. Yeah. So and the people need to start, screaming as loud as they can. I don't suggest doing it anyway, but by showing within their own systems of court that they're not complying with their own law, and sending letters to, like we said last time, start sending letters to HHS, start sending letters to the DOJ, start sending letters to the FBI. Stop calling them.
We may have to start the letter campaign again with the attached evidence and the porthole to justice.
Right, and your signatures, and CC the DOJ. I mean, but I'm hopeful that they're on it, and that that Trump is an advocate on that he is movement by a variety of sources within the military and even the business industry that is moral. I mean, not every instrument of commerce is immoral. There are moral corporations in this world. There are small businesses that make up the preponderance, of my mind, of the commerce in this country, and the preponderance of them are moral, very moral people who do it for their family, God, and country, Yeah. So, and so we're not talking about this overt, every corporation is fascist. But your corporate state, up until Trump, is proving itself to have been a very fascist-run, cooed instrument of state that was affecting domestic terrorism against American people, trying to overthrow our government, selling uranium, selling nuclear arms and guns and drugs and babies. I mean, it's like Noriega. Name some third world
country
dude who came to be a leader of a African nation through a junta and was affecting basic human trafficking. I mean, that's what it appears that the Clintons and Obama had pretty much cultivating just in a higher mindset. I mean, it's like stuff you see in third world countries.
Yeah.
These except it wasn't a military junta. It wasn't a military coup where suddenly the president's murdered. The coup was actually, authoritarian in its banking structure, trafficking humans with banking instruments. I mean, that's just weird. Like I said, it's very Orwellian, and I think that it's going to take a long time for people to really wrap their heads around how we've not seen this before. But I think it just is the nature and the evolution of the humanity and the law itself. The law is, if done right, kind of enlightens us. by its proclamations. And I think that we've been enlightened.
Well, I think when we give so much power, with no oversight at all, this is what happens.
Right. We were lulled into believing that people were doing what they said they were doing. And what they were actually doing is just simulating that process and then knowingly, with willful intent, doing the exact opposite behind the scenes. That is what is going to take a long time for Americans to come to terms with. The inherent nature of these people to actually undermine the law, to affect high treason, sedition, to sell their influence for personal lucre and gain, to bully pulpit their positions of state, to hedge whether they're going to have a job depending on whether Trump gets elected or Hillary gets elected, which is what it looks like. What's his name did? The head of the FBI at the time, Comey. It looks like Comey was hedging his bets when he thought Hillary was going to win, and then he flipped when he thought Trump was, won. And, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to break the law either so that no matter what way, I'm going to have a job afterwards. It's like either through blackmail or,
I don't know how that guy lives with himself.
I don't even understand how that man got to be where he is, because if that guy is the head of the FBI, then it's corrupt.
Yeah.
It's corrupt. And I mean deeply corrupted, deeply, because people like that would cultivate that mentality of just having this supreme authority to
he has children.
Reason.
Comey has children of his own.
I mean, yeah, but I guess he thinks his kids will never be subjected to his authoritarian tyranny. I mean, that's an abuse of his instrument, and that's the problem, and we have a dual republic. But
are you there, Lotus? Hello. Did I lose you? I guess we lost Lotus. Well, here she is.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm gonna wrap. We got to wrap it up soon, anyways. But
yeah, but we're just impose the law. Everyone should. We know that we know it's denials of duty. We're all pretty knowledgeable in the basics of the Constitution. People need to start really screaming and hollering writing letters, making calls, researching the truths.
The people have to really stand up and speak out, be louder, because we're just getting railroaded, and the way things are right now, people are just throwing up their hands and going, okay, we just live in a banana republic now. But
it's the banana republic where your banks are being routed, where they're stealing and selling the property out from under the farmers. They're actually stealing land and selling it to foreign corporations who are going to come in here with their own armed insurgents and say, oh, now part of Montana is now China.
Well, they're doing this. They're affecting the same thing that they're doing with Child Protective Services. They're doing under the Bureau of Land Management. They're doing the same thing.
That's because their Social Security number is a transferring utility. Yeah. So yes, it's all land management. So, but people need to start really paying attention. I mean, we're getting some movement, but the biggest requirement, the thing that would help the most, is people just becoming more active in this and really start documenting these crimes. These are crimes against humanity. We're talking. This is not just an issue for counties or states or the United States. This is an issue of trafficking, of global trafficking. Yeah. This is a global conspiracy, people. There are people in other nations that were trafficking our children, their children. They are trafficking children all over the world, and humans, not just children. But we use children as a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
They're trafficking women and men as slaves. These people just traffic humans. They think they sell humans as cattle.
Yeah.
We're a commodity. I mean, it's not just here. These are crimes. These are people who are actually associated with people. They are affecting crimes against humanity and making war upon the people of the United States and the people of the world.
Yeah,
this is war.
This is horrible. This is horrible. It has to stop. Everybody has to be talking about it. We need more outrage.
Yes, human trafficking should be the number one issue on people's minds and hearts, because even
this young kid, no matter what religion, race,
That kid that
culture.
supposedly murdered those kids in Florida, he was a victim of human trafficking his whole life. That boy was a victim of human trafficking by the state his whole life.
This is so sad.
And they never helped him.
I can't even believe it. Yeah, I have to wrap it up though, Lotus. My phone is going to die, but thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
Yeah, we're gonna try and get back on regular scheduling soon as I'm feeling better. Thank you so much for coming on and joining me this evening.
Yeah, everybody pray. Namaste. Looking good. Just keep going. Keep going. We're still not there.
All right. Okay, everybody. This has been another episode of Porthole to Justice, the window to the truth. I am going to be coming back with regular scheduling soon. Also, tune in for 20 on 20 on the Zeph Report coming up here in a couple of days. You could subscribe to the show on Spreaker.com. It's absolutely free to download the app, subscribe. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. All right, everybody, have a great evening.